Where's everyone coming from? Chris from Rowe, Lorna from Birmingham, Anil from Mumbai. Is it Pune or Pune? How do you say Pune correctly?
Pune.
Pune, okay. See, I forget to ask, and then like 3 years pass, and I ask now. We have Portland, Mumbai, Bangalore, Hennef, Germany. That's cool. Ashburn, Virginia, Chennai, Boston. Hello, Kiara. I think it's Kiara. It's a cool name. Some places I can't pronounce because I do not speak your language, so I don't want to butcher them. Montevideo, Ann Arbor, Spain, Johannesburg, Uruguay. Uruguay, that's cool. Okay, I'm really excited this morning because we had a really good webinar before in my Wonder Woman Wednesday. So I'm extra perky today. South Africa, Jacksonville. Awesome, Bangalore, welcome. Oh, and Cindy's back, that's cool. Sweet, Delhi, Lorraine from California. Hi, Lorraine. Okay, let's get started officially because we're all here. Today is one of our series in mastery and leadership through coaching competencies. Every single time that we have this webinar, the lovely Cindy is our fearless leader, and she's back now. I'm just filling in for momentarily. But every single month we do this webinar, we have a different master level coach, many of whom we trained, some of whom we haven't. Side note, we did train more master coaches than anybody else, I'm pretty sure. We're almost at 40 now. Anyway, every month we have a different master coach who will tell us about something useful and interesting and relevant to coaching and directly tied back to coaching competencies. So if you want to learn, these particular webinars are probably the most educational ones that we do, I would say, because they directly tie back to the kinds of things that you learn when you're becoming a coach. So welcome. Previous ones, we only had a couple of them. They're on our YouTube channel. This one's going to be there later, and we'll be back every single month on the 4th Wednesday at 9 p.m. India, 10:30 a.m. Chicago time with a different master coach. And today's session, Cindy can introduce what we're talking about if she wants to, but many of you have seen VG before. VG has been with through a couple programs with Coach Arya. She's one of the master coaches that went through our programs. She's, you know, an essential part of our community. And I believe she's also the Chennai ICF chapter president. Is that correct?
President-elect, Mother.
President-elect, excuse me. President-elect. Here you are. See, women are always being humble about everything. Whatever. In my mind, you're already the president, and Cindy, you're always the president in my mind too, of like everything. So
yeah,
whatever.
We can all be presidents. Why not?
Exactly. Right? Look, I've warned. I have warned everybody I'm extra chirpy today, so just get used to it. Okay, I'll head over to Cindy, but I did want to say that VG thought she had 90 minutes, and we're going to give her 90 minutes. So I do realize that some of you may have to run after 1 hour. Perfectly fine. At 1 hour is when I'll give out the instructions for CCEUs, etc. But I do hope that you will stick around for 75 to 90 minutes to do justice to VG's presentation. And if you have to run, perfectly fine too. We are streaming this on YouTube, and as soon as it's over, it's going to be available on YouTube so you can catch up on anything you missed. So with that, I'm going to disappear. Cindy and VG.
Thank you, Magda.
Godspeed.
Hi, everyone. Magda, thank you for holding this space with such generosity and a huge smile as usual. We're very grateful and I don't want to say privileged, but yeah, grateful to be in VG's space today and with all of you contributing. I know we just given a lot of thought to this topic and done it in a multi-leveled way, meaning you're going to get lots of gems showing up today. Just to do a framing on the Mastery in Leadership program, The intention was to bring the overall topic of leadership in coaching and to bring each month a piece or a mini topic into the framework of leadership and linking strongly to our core competencies. And today may be a slight flip where a coaching mindset or the competency of coaching mindset will show up as a big priority, but we are doing it with a leadership team anyway. And coaches, I do appreciate that in our current crisis, that many of you would have lots on your mind and, managing quite a bit in your background. I do want to acknowledge you for that and for still continuing to join us on this webinar. Let's just put aside for a little while whatever we have in our minds and in our backgrounds and enjoy a webinar with Vijay. Vijay, it's over to you.
Thank you, Cindy. As always, warm, generous, lovely context setting there. So here's what I wanted to, confide in you and to everyone here. The last few days haven't been easy for anyone, and that includes me. And it's taken me some bit of framing myself to be able to show up authentically today, because I know there was a lot of background noise, at least in my world. But this topic is one such. So when we spoke about it a couple of months ago, I think, I was very excited to pick this one. And I think today, more than anything else, mindset matters, right? And it's about how you just hold your space together. So with that bit of contexting about what I'm bringing into my space, I'm requesting all of you, to just maybe take 30 seconds, just be with yourself and center yourself and really ask yourself and remember, why are you here today? What did you come looking for? What do you want to take away? You can share if you want in the chat box, but this is more a question to really help you a little bit to just get into the space, and so that we can spend the next 1 hour putting a lot of things in the background and being here.
And as a reminder, for those of you who are commenting, just make sure that you select all panelists and attendees in your chat box so that all of us can see what you are saying. Thank you.
So Cindy, I'm requesting you to keep a tab on the chat box. I'm just going to minimize my screen so that we can plunge right in. And thanks, Magda, for your generosity for allowing me to go beyond an hour's time. I hope I will keep it as close to an hour as possible, and we can catch up. We can pick up this topic always later. So really the theme is leading with the coaching mindset. And my first introduction to this, I'm a very first principles person. Very comfortable in picking things up at a very simple level, breaking it down, and then seeing where it takes us. So the first question I asked myself is, what is mindset? Is this moving, my screen? Okay.
Yeah, all good.
So simply put, mindset is a person's set of attitudes, way of thinking, inclination, or just mental state about anything. So essentially, it's a collection of thoughts and beliefs that shape one's worldview. So if you just, and these are dictionary meanings. And if you just look for synonyms of mindset, you'll get things like outlook and mentality. That being said, it leads us to, so then what is coaching mindset? Coaching mindset, in the way I see it, is simply one's outlook or way of thinking and beliefs about coaching. Where do you really come from? And I pick a parallel from the world of mediation, and on which I've spoken about earlier. There's something called the concept of a mediator's mind, which is very important to the way the mediator shows up at the mediation table. Similarly, I draw a parallel to the coach's mind. Again, here's a bit of reflection for all of us here. If you were to just look inside your own mind as a coach, what comes up for you? What's there in that mind? To put it down on the chat box.
I was about to ask you, Vijay, you want them to type into the chat box or
yes, please. Okay. Yeah, this one would be good. Just a few words or whatever is coming up for you. Beautiful. Seeing some lovely answers: compassion, partnering. All right. So just to take that a little deeper, if I were to ask you 3 journaling questions, you don't have to really put down the answers, but I'd like you to think about answers for yourself about these 3 questions that I'm going to throw up now. What does coaching truly mean to me? What is my coaching why? Who is the coach I wish to be? I'd like you to hold on to these questions for reflection, because I know some of these are pretty existential, right? To just sort of type it into a chat box. But I think these questions are very important as you figure out your own coach's mind or your coaching mindset. And I'll just ask you to hold on to these and pause it here. We come back to understand how this connects with what we're talking about today. Cindy, is there something coming up that you want to share about? I can see about 15, 16 messages. Otherwise, I'll just move on.
You can move.
Yeah. All right.
You can go on, Vijay. If it's okay, I'll stop you at an appropriate point and we'll take some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So now I'm going to connect mindset and leadership, which is really, the theme for today. So when you figure out mindset, or rather when you know your mindset, in the process of discovering that, you get to figure out who you are, where you're going, and why you're going there. And so you, as a result, demonstrate personal mastery or self-leadership. And I'm borrowing a definition of self-leadership here, which is the practice of intentionally influencing your thinking, feeling, and actions towards your objective. So how powerful and how connected mindset and leadership isn't it? When you figure out answers to these questions, you're taking the first step towards intentionality and about influencing your own self and your decisions. And this translates into leadership as a coach as well, because that's the role that you're playing when you talk about coaching. Now, what I'm going to do with that context is we're going to get straight into understanding the way this coaching mindset comes up as a competency, which is the focus of our conversation today. And I'm referring to the ICF competency of embodying a coaching mindset. But before that, I'm just going to set the stage by really, because I know a lot of us are still getting the hang of the new competencies. I know we're in this phase of transition. And of course, competencies is a favorite topic. So you'll have to indulge me in that. But I think this will just help us set a framework for our discussion further. So if you really, I think a lot of us or all of us are familiar with this, right? The old core competencies, the ICF old core competencies, which is really into 4 clusters. And I'm not going to be reading into what goes into these. Yeah. If you look at the updated core competencies, and if you want me to go back to that slide, I can. But I've just moved on because this is where coaching mindset is really coming from as core competency 2. Again, the foundational clusters are pretty much the same. But if you see in the foundation, right, which has 2 competencies, which is demonstrates ethical practice and embodies a coaching mindset. Yeah. And of course, we know that there have been some changes, for example, in in communicating effectively. There is the piece about evoking awareness, which has included a couple of the earlier competencies as well. But the point is, clearly there is a level of distinction between the way the competencies are clustered. The foundational competency really talks about the being or the beingness of the coach. And the other 3 clusters really talk about the doing and the various things a coach does in a session, in an engagement, across sessions, right? And that's the way the updated core competencies has been structured. So if you really want to do a comparison, right? This is what comes up. The clusters are pretty much the same. Yeah, even in the old competencies, there was setting the foundation, but it largely had only the focus on ethical practice, which was CC1. But here, the foundational cluster includes coaching mindset. And also, if you were to look at other differences, coaching agreements are now a part of co-creating the relationship. Earlier, it was not. And as I said earlier, evoking awareness, it includes creating awareness, powerful questioning, and direct communication. Yeah. And why am I saying this, right? I mean, why are we getting into this? Now, we need to understand coaching mindset in the larger framework and context of how these core competencies are gradually evolving. So a question I have for you is this competency of coaching mindset a new addition, as seems to be the belief? And if you can just type in your answers in the chat box, that would be great.
The question again, Vijay, please.
The question is coaching mindset a new addition to the competency structure or the competencies required of an ICF coach? Yeses, no's, Cindy?
Cindy or VG, if you could, as things come in, if you could just read them out loud. For people watching on YouTube, they will not see the chat. So it will be helpful if you read things as they come in.
Okay. So we're getting a lot of, not really, it's more an affirmation. I don't think so. It was already a part of coaching presence. Again, it's more an affirmation. It's just more specific in requirements. It's Ravindra saying it's more an emphasis on the requirements of mindset. Let's see, what else? And more an emphasis on mindset. The centrality of the mindset, emphasize again. It's like, I think we have a theme appearing here, Vijay, right?
Okay, I'm not seeing the chat, Cindy, so I'm just listening into what you're saying.
There seems to be some theme appearing in where coaches are saying it's been there, just either repositioned or more affirmed and acknowledged.
Right. So I think that's a great way to segue into the rest of my, at least this part of my presentation. So let me just move on here. I'm going to now sort of, and bear with me, this is going to be a data heavy sort of slide. It may seem analytical, but just stay with it. If you're not the type who likes too much of analysis and data, and just sort of take in what comes, from this slide. Okay, so yeah, before that, sorry, I think I just got a little mixed up. We'll come to that a little later, right? Hold on to that question. But let's get straight into embodying a coaching mindset. The definitions first, okay? Develops and maintains a mindset that is open, curious, flexible, and client-centered. Yeah, seemingly simple words, I would think, and not too much of confusion on what these mean. To me, if I read this, the coaching mindset is, simply put, is about the who of the coach. And I go back to what we did earlier, the questions I invited you to ponder upon. In coaching, we, as part of coach training, we learn the difference between the who of the coach and the what. And coaching is really about coaching the who on the what, and the who becomes so important in the whole coaching process, the who of the client. Similarly, if you flip things around and ask the question, can I identify the who of the coach? That is the essence of coaching mindset. It shows up as your coaching mindset. And there's a lovely word here called embodying, right? I'm sure you've picked up by now that the updated competencies use a lot of the verbs. The usage of nouns are much lesser. And one of the beautiful verb is embodiment. And I knew I had a sense, but I just wanted to be sure again. So I went back to the dictionary and searched for embodiment. And what I got was the representation or expression of something in a tangible or visible form. Quite beautiful, isn't it? We're talking about something that is intangible, which is mindset and the mind. And then we're talking about making it real, making it visible, making it tangible, right? A beautiful duality emerging there. Just hold on to it and we'll come back to exploring that duality. If you break it down in terms of the competency markers, this is an exact text of what coaching mindset is. And I'm not really going to be spending too much time on this because we all have access to it. But maybe just take about 15 seconds to quickly scroll through the list just to jog your memory. And what I've highlighted in blue are the words that really need some bit of our attention to enable us to truly unpack this competency. I'm going to move on. From those 8 points that were there, if I were to construct building blocks, just to simplify the way I internalize this, these are my building blocks. What stand out for me? First one about appreciating client autonomy, respecting and completely believing that the client is an autonomous whole. Ongoing learning and development. This refers to the coach's ongoing learning and development. Developing a reflective practice that enables the client to be, the coach to be better and do better. Contextual and cultural awareness, both with the self and with the system, which is the client's world. Yeah. And finally, I know different people have different interpretations of this. The competency really talks about mental and emotional preparedness. The way I see it, it is being fit for purpose. Am I fit in my purpose as a coach? Am I fit to perform as a coach? Am I fit to be a coach in my own eyes, by my own standards? Which also means there is a fair amount of self-care that gets built into that aspect of the competency. Any questions thus far, Cindy? Otherwise, I'd just like to move into the earlier question that I posed about where this comes up in the PCC markers or our earlier competency set.
Yes, go ahead. Right now, there's more comments than questions. Yeah,
good comments?
Yeah, all in response to what the questions you've been asking. Yes, definitely.
Right. All right.
But somebody says elaborate. Kanan asked that you elaborate the last point a bit more.
Yeah, sure. I can do that. We'll come back to it in a bit as well.
Okay.
Let me take an analogy from sport or any other profession, Kanan. Right? Every profession requires you to be fit for the purpose for which you are in that profession. So a surgeon or a medical doctor needs to be able to, deliver his duty or role of taking care of somebody's health. And he needs to be fit for that. That may mean fitness in various ways, be it just physical fitness, be it the mental ability to be focused, or be it an ability to manage his or her own emotion. So I draw a parallel from there. And as coaches, we are in this noble profession called coaching. We need to be fit for our purpose too. And ICF and coaching mindset talks about being mentally and emotionally prepared for a session. I'm just trying to look at the larger aspect of what that means. Why should I be mentally and emotionally prepared? I need to be mentally and emotionally prepared because it sets me up to be fit for the purpose I have chosen for myself.
Yeah, Vijay, I was going to engage with you a bit more on this. Because we are professionals, right? It's the profession of coaching. Yeah. So a part of this fit for purpose is becoming a professional and ongoing learning and development in that space of becoming a professional. Because you and I know, even at an MCC level, we're still ongoing learning. There's no stop point here. There's just, I get delighted when I'm mentoring a coach and I learn something myself, and that it's little bits of nuggets showing up in something the coach has done and during mentoring where you see this becoming more and more professional in yourself, talking about myself. And the same with our clients. As they're going through a coaching journey, it also delights us, and we the self-growth, self-development as we see their progress and experience that. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely, Cindy. And if you look at mastery, right? I mean, people who are cutting edge in their craft would always be at it. And I go back to this another very personal example of a doctor, and without getting into names, etc. Somebody known to me personally is an all India reputed physician in a particular branch of medicine. And since I know him personally, I know that every day at the end of his day, right, 10 to 11 p.m. is his me time. And you know what he would do in his me time? He would be plowing through medical journals from a different, not an Indian medical journal, yeah, but from somewhere else. And that was his way of being fit for purpose, because he would say that my knowledge is there's never a cap to that, but I just want to be better and better and better and just want to sharpen my saw. So what you're saying is absolutely beautiful, Cindy. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to move on now. And yeah, so this was that slide that I spoke about. So just sort of stay with me here. Look at the column, leftmost column, which is all about the elements of coaching mindset that we spoke about, right? Client autonomy, ongoing learning and development, reflective practice, cultural awareness, coach's intuition, developing and maintaining emotional regulation, emotional and mental preparation, and seeking outside help. So these are really the core elements of what goes into coaching mindset. And the 4 columns that follow after, yeah, are really the references to our PCC markers document, which is the place from where a lot of us use as a reference guide to hone our competencies, to know about the competencies, about what they stood for. What I've tried to do is try and see, did a little bit of mapping here, try and see whether elements of coaching mindset have been there earlier or it's totally new and different. And like what a lot of you seem to have said, it is not totally new and different. Lots of parts of it have been around for a while. But what has now happened beautifully is the culling out of a lot of it and giving it, I think, the status and the place that it deserves. Enable us to think quite in a more focused way about it. Having said that, I don't think all of the elements were there. So if you see, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'd be very happy to look at other evidence on this from anyone here. Ongoing reflective practice or mental and emotional preparation. These are 2 sub-competencies which I have not seen so far in our earlier competency model. So these are welcome, and I think new additions to the updated competency on coaching mindset. Yeah, but everything else, for example, even ongoing learning and development. Interestingly, I didn't find a reference to this in the PCC markers, but I found a reference to this in the ICF Code of Ethics in section 5. The last point, which says that it's an ethical duty for every ICF coach to invest in ongoing learning and development. I really didn't know that. Or, for example, seeking outside help. Yeah, which is again captured in the ICF Code of Ethics. I think thanks to this webinar, I went back to the ICF Code of Ethics and did a complete unpacking of that. So yeah, so that was a good thing. But everything else, right? There are references in bits and pieces. Maybe not language the same way, maybe not the same terms. But I'd like you to go back. I mean, we can spend a lot of time unpacking this. But I think in the interest of time, let's move ahead. But just go back if you're not sort of convinced that it was there earlier and where this has come. I'm happy to share this slide as well as a reference point. The one that had a lot of reference was client autonomy in different ways, though the word client autonomy was not used, whether it was in coaching, creating the agreement or creating trust and intimacy, coaching presence, or even, 9, 10, 11, managing progress and accountability. there is a reference to client autonomy. Okay, I'm going to move on. Now let's context this with the new coaching competencies, updated coaching competencies, sorry. And the context I'm going to bring here is, though there is a competency which has been, dedicated and with focus called the coaching mindset, again, it finds mention in quite a few other places of the updated core competency model. And that's quite powerful, which means, the earlier question about embodiment. So there is mindset, but, it's showing up in different places of the doing of the coach. And let me explain here why. If you look at the first competency that I'm referring to, which is cultivates trust and safety. Earlier, it was creating trust and intimacy, and we know it's changed to this nomenclature now. It talks about partnering with the client to create a safe, supportive environment that allows the client to share freely, maintains a relationship of mutual respect and trust. And what stands out for me here is the reference to partnership and respecting the whole person of the client, which directly feeds into client autonomy. Because when you respect that the client is whole as a person, you also then believe that he or she will be responsible for whatever he does or she does. Also, acknowledging the work of the client in the process, which again is a beautiful indication of partnering. In this competency, and I've not written this verbatim, there is a reference to client context, which gets mentioned in coaching mindset. And client context includes identity, environment, experiences, values, and beliefs. So the context that is referred to in coaching mindset refers to all of this. So as a coach, you're accounting for, a very systemic view of understanding the core of the client. Similarly, it talks about adaptability, which is about adapting one's coaching to the client. Often we talk about coaching style. Sure, it's okay to have your coaching style, but I think, really having coaching mindset is being your adaptability, your flexibility to adapt your style to the client. And finally, I refer to vulnerability, which is mentioned here, which is about demonstrating openness and transparency, which is again so important when you talk about a mindset that is open. So when you talk about these elements in coaching mindset, you will find it getting strengthened in many places here. And the top one being cultivating trust and safety. I'm going to move on. There's another competency, which is which I would really think, is so connected to coaching mindset, almost, inseparably so, if you were to ask me. Coaching presence talks about, and the terminology is maintains presence because of the usage of verb, but really we're talking about maintaining coaching presence, is fully conscious and present with the client, employing a style that is open, flexible, grounded, and confident. Beautiful, isn't it? Open and flexible comes here as well. It's present in coaching mindset. It also finds its place here. About the word grounded, completely new and different word that's come in. Again, if you look at the meaning of grounded, it's about being centered. It's about being fully conscious and present to what's going on around you. Calm, stable, right? And beautifully ties back in to the client, to the coach, being able to manage their emotions and being emotionally prepared. Imagine if you can be grounded. You show up in so much more comfort and confidence with your emotions. Again, client-centeredness and curiosity two very important aspects of coaching presence finds its place here. And managing emotions, as I spoke about earlier, that of the client and of the self shows its place here. So fantastic linkages between the two. So what is a mindset here actually shows up as coaching presence. With the right mindset, you can be so much more present in the session and for your clients. There are a couple of other competencies where coaching mindset finds its place again, finds cross-reference. In culture and context, it comes up in active listening or listens actively. What do you listen actively to? To the client, systems, and context. Yeah. And similarly, client autonomy shows up in facilitating client growth. You are completely honoring the client when in that last bit of the competency model, which is facilitating client growth. Finally, in evoking awareness, there is a reference to both flexibility and client-centeredness, right? Flexibility defined as adjusting the coaching approach in response to the client's needs. So in this session, I may be adopting a certain approach. In the very next session, my approach may be something very different. And as a coach, that shouldn't unnerve me. That should not make me feel not anchored or not grounded. And where do I get the confidence from? Because my style is flexible and open. So this is really what I wanted to say about how there is this beautiful backing and forthing between coaching mindset and I would say pretty much 60–70% of the rest of the core competency model, which has now been updated and released by ICF. So I'm just going to do a little bit. This slide these are my notes, my own notes, jottings. If I were to analyze this whole thing, right, what are the key themes that stand out for me? It is seemingly a new competency, but not really new or entirely new. The embodiment or showing up of this competency across the sessions and engagement in other competencies. So this competency does not only show up in the session, but it shows up across sessions. The focus on partnership, which is about honoring client autonomy. The focus on culture and context, which takes a broader approach to the client itself and a broader approach to the coaching goal. Questions which I also had in my mind when I first got introduced to this was, so how would this be assessed? In a recording, how would it show up? In a recent ICF webinar that I attended on this, what I really picked up was saying that here the assessment may not necessarily happen through the recording. It may come through, but largely that assessment may have to be done through the knowledge test, skills and knowledge test, which is really about the CKA, right? About what is the kind of mindset that a coach brings into coaching. Time will tell, in the revised PCC markers, how this shows up. And I'm also very curious to know about that. And as I finally said, there's a beautiful interplay between mindset and embodiment. So not really oxymoron, right? What is in the mind is translating beautifully into how the coach shows up. And, here is a slide that I think sort of summarizes it for me. Stay with this. What is in the center is about the elements of the mindset, which is open, flexible, client-centered, and curious. And then there are many sort of boxes outside, 10 of them, which I think capture the embodiment part of this competency, how it shows up. So if you, again, go back to that client's mind, right? Coach's mind that we spoke about. These are the things that the coach shows up as vulnerable, aware and intuitive, grounded, embraces partnership and autonomy, a coach sharpening the saw, confident, fit for purpose, caring for self, emotionally intelligent, and finally, appreciating the system and context, and finally, reflecting, learning, and growing. And the interplay is so beautiful. The same embodiment, the more you embody, the more it sort of feeds back into the mindset, and the center gets strengthened. So mindset affects embodiment, and embodiment feeds back into strengthening the mindset. Just going to take a pause here before we move into the second part of the webinar about the how of this competency. Cindy, if you can, just share what's coming up, and also if there is, this format is a little difficult for me because I can't, I don't get visual feedback, and I'm a pretty visual learner. So if there's something that you want more of, less of, please share that in the chat box as well.
Okay. So there's lots of compliments. Coaches liking the points that you are raising. For example, good summary, especially like bullet points 1 and 4. Coaches talking about this word grounded and being humble. You got a compliment that you're quite in your element, and very rich, profound, and a request that you share your slides at the end. Magda put up the link to the updated core competencies. Let's see, what else do we have? So it's mostly comments and compliments around the speaker and the content.
Okay, so I'm going to take that as a thumbs up, and we'll go ahead. Now there'll be lots more questions where, so it'd be good if you have a pen and a paper or a notebook or something where you can jot down some of the stuff. You may want to take down a few questions.
Vijay, while coaches are getting ready with pen and paper, Draven raised a question, so I thought I'll just check it in with you. How would you differentiate between embodiment and mindset?
Okay, so just going to repeat some of what I said earlier, and I'm happy to hear a different point of view. The way I see it is, like I defined mindset earlier, it's really about, an attitude or a philosophy or a mentality that I hold towards something. So it could be in the context of coaching. What do I really believe coaching is all about? Who do I really believe a coach is all about? How do I see this whole thing? And very different from my coaching style or my model or my business model or none of that, right? Fundamentally, how do I look at this? What's my attitude towards it? Embodiment, as I defined earlier, is about, how do I get this thing going on in my mind and in my heart, in my internal space? how does it manifest for others around me? My stakeholders, my clients, my sponsors, my own self. When I look at myself in the mirror, what comes up? That is embodiment. Embodiment is more physical. Embodiment, even though it's behavior, it is more tangible. There is evidence of it. So, which is why I think, they're connected, but they're different. Cindy, if you have anything to add or a different perspective, please share.
We have some coaches also sharing their opinions. Embodiment is manifest in mindset. John shared, the chat is moving quite fast here. Embodiment for me, to feel it deeply in your belly. Okay, I'm going to find John's one, which is just moved away very quickly, but other coaches are making reference to it. Let's see, where's it? There we go. To my mind, embodiment is embraced. To my mind, embody is embracing it, owning it, making it my own, make it part of my body, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. And I think it's absolutely right. So for example, when when I'm open, when I come in with an open mindset, I sometimes feel myself, being vulnerable, because I'm ready to be, I've opened myself for critique, for feedback, to be vulnerable. So yes, it's true. I feel the vulnerability in various ways in my body, but I just want to take it one step further. My significant others, and when I mean a significant other in the coaching partnership, it's my client. Yeah, they feel my vulnerability too. And my vulnerability then creates that space for them to be vulnerable. So embodiment is also about me being so comfortable with being myself that it shows, that it's there for all to see, for my client to see and experience as well. So a good, reflection question that you could write down, and I'm going to think about it, is what are the different ways in which, these aspects of the coaching mindset finds embodiment in your life when you are coaching? How does it show up for you? Or how does it not? Is any of them more challenging than the other? All right. So I'm now going to move into the second part of the webinar. And this bit was really built a lot from my own journaling effort on this. When this came up now, and as a new competency, but also more importantly, I think from the time I started my mastery journey, and Cindy's been privy to that, there were lots of these questions that one jots down, and beautifully so. I think when I really thought about the competency in a pretty structured way, I began to get a few answers for myself. Far from filling it all up, many of them still remain as questions in my book, but they're questions I love to go back to. And so again, it comes from my world. Take what's relevant for you, what strikes a chord, and add on your own to the list. And I will definitely talk about coaching mindset and mastery in a bit. But before that, I'd like to spend some time on exploring the how of coaching mindset, because things like open, flexible, and all those 8 points that we spoke about could be a little bit at 10,000 feet. Could be a little cryptic, right? So for all other competencies, right? I mean, when you go to coach training, it's very, it's easier to train on those competencies. It's easy you can go through. Not to say that any of it is easy, but this one is just so much broader and loose. I think that it requires introspection, but I think the competency itself is like that, right? No one can teach another or guide another on how to build mindset. I think it's the hardest thing, right? Because it's a part of you. So I'm just going to spend some time now in exploring 4 main blocks. I've consciously kept out 1 or 2, for example, client autonomy, because I think it shows up in a lot of places, and I think a lot of us would be quite aware as to coach behavior or actions to foster client autonomy. So the first one here is, and sort of don't go into the second, just stay with the first, ongoing learning and development as a coach. So these are some of the reflective questions, as I said, that come up for me. And I'm really not going to be, sharing specific answers or guideline or anything of that, unless there's a very specific question and we need to discuss it. So when I talk about ongoing learning and development as a coach, what kinds of learning? Are we talking about only coach-specific knowledge and learning coaching? Or are we talking about anything else beyond coaching that could support you to be a better coach? Does learning go beyond coaching skills and coaching? What can build a coach's critical thinking? What thought-provoking conversations? And where would you go to for these conversations? Where will you learn from? How can a coach learn to facilitate creativity in the coaching context? Because after all, coaching is a thought-provoking and creative process. Many times I go back to that definition whenever I'm in doubt. As a coach, have you partnered to create an environment for provoking thought and creativity? And if you have to do that, will that feature in your own learning and development? What are the opportunities you allow yourself to be creative, to make mistakes, to try new things? In the coaching session and in your life beyond of that of a coach. It's my humble submission that a lot of who we be and we become as coaches is not really only built via our coaching experiences. It's a lot of our life experiences that shape you up in terms of who you show up as. And finally, my favorite question, how aware are you of your own learning style? What works for you? When do you learn best? So learning and development as seemingly simple as it is, I think is a lot deeper and a lot more nuanced. Sure, skill building opportunities like these, where we get onto a webinar, is I think is a great commitment. And yes, I should have done that up front when we started. I truly acknowledge, I know for a lot of people, it's quite late in the night or maybe early in the morning, for being here, spending this time, right? It is your commitment to learning and development. But can you do more? Can you find more creative and thought-provoking ways to learn and develop as a coach? And the crucial word is ongoing. Moving on. Similarly, about reflective practice. Again, ongoing reflective practice. I know a lot of coaches think that reflective practice is journaling. Sure, journaling, I think, is a great place to start. And I think, you know, all good coach training schools encourage us to, you know, do journaling. But some more questions for us to think about in this space of reflective practice. What could a coach reflect upon? In fact, could we have a few answers in the chat for just that question alone?
So, Vijay, I'll just talk a little bit while coaches are typing, and I'll add some contributions from the chat. John spoke a little bit about adding to your, this chat is moving so quickly. When you spoke about being intentional, and he spoke about also being intentional about what changes you are making within yourself.
Yeah.
So where are we now? In a very fast-moving chat. Let me pick up some other things. I could, as coach, have embodied the mindset better during the session. I could reflect upon the experience when in the process of understanding. Was I vulnerable? I can reflect upon what I notice in myself. How am I different as a coach today as compared to how I was 12 months ago? What changed in my mindset? What fears were showing up? Any root cause analysis? Reflections on how I am contributing to my clients' growth. Reflect on your emotional state during the coaching. How comfortable are you?
Yep.
The moments that I loved and those when I tested. Are those when I was tested, sorry.
Tested.
Can I call it out when I am stuck? Of course you can. How do judgments impact my mindset? So Vijay, I don't mean to interrupt you. Please go on.
These are beautiful. These are just so beautiful. And I think some of that I've captured here, right? The one thing I wanted to, of course, talk about is we often tend to reflect upon a session, right? Whether it's in peer coaching or journaling, we do that. But do we reflect across an engagement? Do we reflect across engagements? So of late, my reflections have been in this space, Cindy, as to why is it that I'm attracting few kinds of engagements? Why is more of that showing up in my practice? Or why are more certain kinds of clients coming to me and certain not? I think that's a great point to reflect upon, right? Because it's coming from you.
Yeah. And you did a lot of that recently, Vijay.
Yeah.
A lot of reflections on many aspects, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I've been writing about some reflective experiences, and it's true what you're pointing out. It's got a lot to do about my clients and what I'm learning from them. So it's not just about me and how I showed up, but also what's happening with my clients. And then I try to look back as to what did I do or did not do for that to happen. I also reflect on coaching competencies. I know it sounds a little textbookish to do so, but I'm this huge fan of core competencies. I know lots of my friends who are here on this call know that. I can get a little nitpicky on it, but I don't know. I think it just helps me, to play within a construct. And interestingly, it does not limit me at all. Most people think that competencies are so limiting. I don't think so. And we can talk about it when we talk about mastery level competencies. But I think reflecting on competencies is a good thing to do. Again, on
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry to
you remember the CC8 one?
No. I was going to say something else. I recall when you coached in vernacular, when you coached in Tamil, right?
Yeah.
How delighted you were, and you were reflecting with me on a call on exactly how the core competencies are beginning to show up coaching in vernacular, right?
Yeah.
It
just busted my mindset. Yeah, it just busted my self-limiting belief, because I would go there, thinking that, we get caught into some jargon, right, as coaches. And I realized I had no jargon to rely upon in my native tongue. I didn't know that. For example, if you ask me coaching presence, I'd go like, what? I can't translate coaching presence or whatever, right? Or whatever you want to talk about. But I just showed up so beautifully, and some of my best sessions, so much so that today I voluntarily put up my hand if somebody wants a coach who speaks, Tamil or Hindi, right? 2 languages I know apart from English. But I think it just shook me up. So you're right. Thanks, Cindy. Thanks for bringing that up. So the last 2 points that I want to touch upon on this one, right? If you go back to the competency, unlike learning and development, here it expressly says reflective practice that helps, I don't know the exact words, maybe somebody can type it out. It's about, that being in the service of the client, enabling you to coach better, to be a better coach, right? So this has got to then add up into sharpening that saw, that example that I spoke about, right? Does my reflection enable me to be that little bit, better as a coach, better as a human being? And finally, the role of supervision. I think supervision, now ICF also, there is the ICF's explanation and point of view on supervision. I would urge all of you to read it if you've not already. Not very complicated, but I think there is recognition that supervision is very important. I know we can do an entire webinar on supervision, and that's not the idea, but supervision, I think, though, is not the same as reflective practice. And I think this came up as a question, to ICF when they did the webinar on core competencies, the updated ones. Supervision is not the same as reflective practice, but supervision is one of the ways of reflective practice. I just want to leave it with that level of distinction. I'm just going to move on to the other 2 competencies where, and some more questions for us to reflect upon. Contextual and cultural awareness, right? This, in fact, could be a competency that requires work in progress, but it's not very complicated. I think it just requires a coach to truly be open and embrace new opportunities and experiences. Like Cindy, the previous example that you gave, right? If, let's say, I did not want to take that bit of risk and say, hey, okay, let me get into a new cultural context of somebody who doesn't speak English and just try. I don't think I could have appreciated that world at all. Then imagine I'm closing my doors to so many beautiful people out there who, could benefit from my gift of being a coach. So what kind of interactions can enable varied cultural and contextual appreciation and go beyond your coaching world? I remember in one of the earlier webinars on coaching children, right? I know it doesn't make sense from a business point of view. Yeah, I mean, any good marketer will tell me that's terrible strategy, to go and sort of coach children when your focus is something else. But I love coaching children and teenagers because they take me to a very different world with very different realities and challenges. It puts me in a very different contextual situation. So I would urge you, though it may not be from a financial point of view or a business point of view, allow new coaching opportunities and new kinds of people and new kinds of conversation. Allow yourself to go into those. The one person who would gain in this is you as a coach. How can a coach develop an appreciative inquiry process, especially with people whom you don't see eye to eye with at all? Can you still appreciate their world? Can you still really listen to what they're saying? So you may land up with a client with whom on the surface you really don't see eye to eye. You hardly have anything in common, but still the client chose you and you decide to coach. Can you really allow yourself to embrace that client? What opportunities can allow for experiencing debate and dissent? Are we comfortable with that? Okay. And I'm going to say something a little provocative here. Yeah, but I request you to take it in the right spirit. I find in a lot of coaching communities, or let's say when coaches get together, and suddenly that becomes our world, right? We are with coaches, we are in the coaching space, we are networked with coaches, we are friends with coaches, right? That becomes our world in many ways. And in that world, often I don't see healthy debate and dissent. I find we are more disposed to being so appreciative, right? We don't want to sometimes get into areas that are uncomfortable, that are different, that bring in that diversity. So my question to you is, as a coach, as a human being, how comfortable are you with debate and dissent? And where do you create those opportunities for yourself? Is everyone around you is saying, yes, well done, great job? Where are you going to get your critique from? Right? And the moment we allow ourselves to be in that space, we are able to appreciate differences and we're able to look at very different contexts. I find this very useful as an aspect to build in myself as a coach. And finally, the influence of our own context and culture on our thinking and being. And here you really need to put a hand to your heart and say, how truly limited do I become because of my identity? The fact that I'm Indian, the fact that I'm woman, the fact that I'm a mother, the fact that I'm, we hold on to our identities, right? And how much of that slips into the coaching context, knowingly or unknowingly? What are those unconscious biases we take with ourselves? Though we say we will hold everyone in unconditional positive regard, we will not be judgmental. I'm not saying that you have to be 0-100, but as you said, Cindy, it's work in progress. But how do you really lessen that more and more so that you can embrace diversity and cultural differences? Because the coaching world out there is so big and beautiful. You just have to allow yourself the opportunities to explore that world. Finally, this is again my favorite, not because it's got to do with the word fit, but I think things that are just so important for us to, as coaches, to be at our best and preserve ourselves, take care of ourselves. How does the coach mentally prepare for a session? Earlier, right, I would have maybe sessions back to back. And with just a cup of coffee in between, I'd go from session A to session B. And at one time, right, when I was doing everything okay, but I just wasn't, in the flow. And I ask myself, right, am I just taking myself physically there for every session? Where am I mentally? And I would even say physically. Physically, I mean, I know ICF doesn't talk about it, but I always ask myself, am I physically ready for this session, right? Have I rested enough? Have I got enough sleep? I mean, are my shoulders hurting? Am I in a relaxed posture? What's going to allow me to sit like this for, 5 hours a day or 3 hours a day, whatever it is, right? So how fit am I really being? And then when I ask myself, how do I mentally prepare for a session? What do I do? What are the things you do to get into the zone so that you're not distracted? So that, there's so much uncertainty right now going on in our own personal worlds. But you have a session coming up tomorrow. What would you do? What would be that self-talk you'd have to yourself, or just allowing yourself to get into the zone? So important to figure out, because it's one of those things that don't hit you in the face, but catches up with you very soon. And mental fatigue comes in. And yes, there have been times, and I'm being very vulnerable saying it here, but I'm okay to say it in the coaching community. There have been times when at 50 minutes, I'm telling myself, oh, can somebody get me a cup of coffee? Right? And I can't get myself one. Of course, there are times I tell my clients that, hey, I think I need a cup of coffee, and I excuse myself, but not every time. So where was I? How prepared was I? I'm not being harsh on myself, but was I really authentic the entire time? Was I there for the client? That's why my mental and sometimes the same thing happens for emotional preparedness. When there is a lot of drama going on in your own life, right? You've just had a scrap with your spouse and you have to coach.
Vijay, I just want to remind you about the time.
Yeah, sure. Are we at? Yeah, sure.
We've got like about 10 minutes.
Yeah, just going to be wrapping up. Yeah.
Okay.
So again, emotional preparedness is absolutely important, and we need to figure it out for ourselves. How do we go there feeling mentally calm, confident? Yeah, go back to the mindset. And interestingly, there's a flip side to managing emotion, right? When there is so much going on and you're trying to put that in the back burner, are you compromising on authenticity? Because clients are very quick to pick it up. Sometimes we do go into the session, yeah, with a little bit extra, perfume and makeup. The clients see us through. So how do I balance my emotion with my authenticity? A question I'm always seeking answers to. How well can I manage my emotion so that I don't steal into the client's space? That's always the question I ask. So I allow myself to be authentic as long as it does not eat into the client's space, the coaching space. And finally, who is a coach's support system? Who's your support system? Who's your go-to? Who's your go-to when you feel frustrated, as a coach? Who's your go-to when you feel, you're in doubt about coaching ethics? Who's your go-to for many things as a coach? So important for us coaches to have a support system that could comprise of mentors, supervisors, buddies, people from completely out of the coaching ecosystem who could still hold space for us. So these are some of the questions that come up for me when I explore these dimensions of coaching mindset. No straightforward answers. I would love to know, if you have answers to a few, we can talk about it offline. And finally, I just have, I'm just going to conclude with this one slide, which is about coaching mindset and its relationship to mastery. When I enrolled and I decided that I know it's, sounds strange to say be a master coach. You can't be a master coach. You can become one, and it's work in progress. Let's say get on to the journey of mastery. I had no clue what I was in store for. But the one thing I did feel that I wanted to, know myself better is some of these existential questions as a coach. Who am I? What am I doing? What does this mean to me? Where am I going? What's the difference I want to make in this world? Right? And if there was one competency that I really worked on and that I love to explore myself on, was on coaching mindset. It was not called coaching mindset those days, but it was really about the beingness of the coach, the who, right? And mastery allows you to explore this dimension about yourself. You can do everything right in the textbook, but if you're not being a coach, every time you'd go in with a recording and you'd say, hey, that's not okay, this is not okay. And after a lot of soul searching, I realized the answer lies elsewhere. Coach development, as you said, Cindy, is always work in progress. And that's a learning from mastery, and that ties in so well with coaching mindset. Understanding the totality of the client, the system, the values, the context, everything about the client and the partnership, again, is something that you learn in the process of mastery. Pursuing depth, you go deeper, you keep sharpening the saw. Who are you doing it for? Not for anyone external. You're doing it for yourself. As somebody said, the embodiment, feeling yourself as the coach who you want to be. Vulnerable, not knowing, and curious. 3 beautiful states which immediately translate into being natural, easy, and confident. Sounds like oxymorons, but starting here ends you up with what's on the right. And one last thing, in the interest of time, I'm not going to share those slides, but I'll be happy to send that out subsequently. The beingness of the coach, right, shows up as doing in a lot of the mastery level competencies. And I'm talking about in the earlier, there's a document which talks about the rating levels of various competencies, the comparative rating. And if you just see the mastery level rating, take that up as a post-session activity to look at that mastery level rating document and to see where some of this shows up. These are the slides. All right, so I'm done. Long session, but I really couldn't have done justice to it any other way. Thank you, Magda. I really appreciate the extra half an hour that you gave me, and very happy to take a few questions if we have time. Otherwise, always happy and always enjoy a good conversation on coaching. Feel free to reach out.
That's awesome, Vijay. I have a suggestion because I'm sure there will be questions and the chat was really lively today. So I will, in like 5 minutes, I'll post a blog post on coacharya.com, coacharya.com/blog. I'll put a blog post with this session embedded, and anyone who has any remaining questions, just please head over there. And there's a comments section right below the video that I'll insert. Please ask your questions. And when there's a few, I'll ping them to VG so she can answer them and we can update the blog post. Cool.
Yeah, sure. Cindy would be very happy to know what you are feeling and where you are on this. And also, invite all participants to maybe one word to just check out as to where you are after the session. And now I'm going to look at the chat box. So that would be great. Just get some feedback.
So where am I? I share a lot of sentiments put up on the chat that you presented in a very authentic way. I was, talking to us, which felt great. And sharing some things of your own, engaging with some things with the rest of us. So I'm very grateful to be in your space today. And I'll take 1 minute before I'll tell you what's going on in the chat, okay? And the 1 minute is, coaches, please join us next month on the leadership webinars. We are discussing conversational intelligence or intelligent conversations. And of course, linking it to leadership and to mastery. And especially invite to the MCCs on the call. If you want to run a webinar on any particular topic of MCC, any topic of leadership, linking it to a core competency or few, please let me know. We would love to have you present on a topic in leadership. You can contact me in the background, and I'm quite happy to have a chat with you. So Vijay raises question. Any thoughts or any questions you have? I think we got about 2 minutes. You can put it on the chat or you can ask her directly. I don't think there's enough time for asking her directly. Put it on the chat and Vijay will answer it in the blog, as Magda said. Right, Vijay, lots of people are thanking you for a lovely session.
Yeah, I'm just seeing that. I'm just so humbled, and you know, I'm really yeah. I really wish this could have been an interactive session. So that's all I'm thinking right now. But yeah, so some other day. And thank you everyone for being so amazing. And I must tell you that you know, when there is this level of interactiveness, you know that something is happening in the background. I think it just gives you that little extra not confidence, that little extra spring in your step to just go out there and say what you want to. So thank you, Cindy.
Little extra confidence. You nailed that core competency. I mean, you unpacked it so well. Yeah, didn't she, Magda?
She did. And I'm go on the interactive thing. There's some webinars that work best when they don't have that, and some where I also wish I would have that. So this is no pressure on you or on anyone listening, but you know, we have a platform for doing this kind of stuff. We have a learning management system where we can have on-demand self-paced courses with discussion inbuilt. We also have paid for the Zoom license so we can have longer sessions. We have a great community that's very supportive. So if there's a need, I want to say the market because I'm a marketer, so that's why I think. If there's a market for doing something like this, but more interactive, more like a workshop, Vijay, I'm sure, would be happy to do something. Again, no pressure, we can discuss this offline. But when we launch new programs at Coacharya, it's because you guys ask for them, not because we're just pulling this out of a hat, because we literally have over 1,000 hours of accredited content with ICF. And we have so many people who want to do things, but we don't want to launch things and then not have enough participants. So this is, I guess, a call to action to our audience that if you want to see a program, especially like a workshop one that's longer, maybe more intensive, more discussion based, where we're all on the screen, and most likely paid, because obviously we need to make sure we remunerate, I can't say the word, the person who's leading it. Please email me, magda@coacharya.com. You know how to reach me. If enough of you come and say, we want a program on blah, we can make it happen. We just need you to request it. So please, please, please request programs and we'll make them happen.
Thank you.
Sweet.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, and
thank you.
Love and prayers to everyone, whichever part of the world you're in.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.